Hey guys, Connor here from Kamerastore.com. Today we're back with another how-to video. This time we've got the Olympus OM-1. So we're going to be going over some basic features and telling you sort of what everything on the camera means. So yeah, let's get started. First we'll start with some history. The Olympus OM-1 was released in 1972 and really changed the SLR game when it was released. This camera is a lot smaller than a lot of the cameras that came out before it, but still managed to pack quite a lot of features into it. Has a big bright viewfinder, great lenses, high shutter speeds, and it's mechanical, meaning that the shutter will fire without batteries. So there's no batteries inside and the shutter still works, which is really useful, especially today. Whereas a lot of electronic cameras sometimes will have some issues these days. So one of the first things you'll want to do is put a lens on the camera, so I'll take it off just for a second. So on the Olympus OM system, you'll see there's a red dot here, right in the middle of the lens's focusing scale, and that lines up with this red dot here on the lens mount. So you just put the lens in, twist it, and it'll click. I was actually holding the button down, so there you go. There's a click, and then the lens is secured in place. It's locked. To get the lens off, it's this button here. On the lens, actually, not on the body. So you press that, twist the lens, comes right off. The next thing we're going to want to do is load a battery inside the camera. So, like I said, the battery only controls the light meter. So the shutter is completely mechanical and works without a battery. But you're going to want to grab a coin like this, put it in this slot on the bottom of the camera and twist it. Lefty-loosey, righty-tighty. That'll come right off. Then we grab our battery. So the Olympus OM-1 uses a PX625 battery. It's a pretty common button type battery, and you'll see on the battery cap here there's a little plus. So you take the plus of the battery, put that with the plus on the battery cap, and then it's ready to go back in. We can screw it in without the coin mostly, but I'll use the coin to tighten it up. Now the battery's installed, and our Olympus OM-1 is completely ready to use with the light meter and all. So let's go ahead and look at the different buttons and what everything does and means on the Olympus OM-1. We'll start with the top of the camera. So we have quite a few things here going from left to right. We have the rewind knob. So that flips out, and that's what you use to rewind the film. Flips back in. Here's the on-off switch for the light meter, so pretty self-explanatory. Off position, on position. Here we have a accessory port for a hot shoe. The Olympus OM-1 doesn't have a flash shoe by default. You have to get one and install it here. We have an OM-1N, slightly newer model, but pretty much the same thing. This one needs Olympus Accessory Shoe 4, whereas an older OM-1 would use, I believe, Shoe 1 or Shoe 2. Moving just a bit further, we have the ISO selector. So it says ASA, ISO, ASA, same difference for our purposes. This tells the camera how sensitive the film is to light. So basically your film will have a number on it, and you want to make sure that this number matches. So there's a little notch right there, and that corresponds with the number. So right now it's set to ISO 100. So if I had 400 speed film, I would press this silver button here and then rotate this to 400. So there. Now it's at 400, and the camera would understand what film we have and be able to meter appropriately. Just a bit further, this is our film advance lever. So you pull that every time to take a shot. That moves the film from this end to this end, and also primes the shutter to fire, which then you would press here, the shutter button, to fire the camera. And the last thing on top is the frame counter here. So that moves up one position every time you press the shutter button, or every time you wind the film. You can see, now it's at 6. Moving a bit further, we can see the controls on the lens. So this is technically the lens mount, but here are your shutter speeds. This rotates to tell you the different shutter speeds that you can select. So this camera goes from 1 second here all the way to 1/1000th of a second. And different shutter speeds will affect your photo quite a bit. Obviously, a longer shutter speed lets more light in. So you'll need to do that for low light photography. But also fast shutter speeds like 1/1000th are able to capture motion. So if you have a fast-moving subject, you basically want to use 1/250th or above. So these 3 shutter speeds will be good for capturing motion. A bit further in, we have our depth of field scale. So that'll tell us basically what distance is in focus at a given aperture rating. So at f16 right now, We have infinity to, what is that, about 8 feet, or 2.5 meters. So yeah, that's a sort of hyperfocal scale. A little bit further in, we have our focus ring, so this rotates to allow the lens to focus at different distances. The red line here indicates what distance is selected, so right now it's at 2 meters, and then there it's at infinity. This lens has a minimum focus distance of 0.45 meters, so yeah, you can focus on things that close or that far away. The final thing is this aperture ring here, so that controls sort of an opening in the lens that decides how much light is let in at any given time. This higher number is a narrower aperture. It lets less light in, but it means more things are in focus. So for landscape shots, f16, f11, f8 are great. But for portraiture, if you want that sort of soft background, that blurry background with a sharp subject, you're going to want to use a number like 1.8 or 2.8, a wider number. So we'll go ahead now and we'll flip the camera back on its front so we can go over some more of the features here. So here we have our rewind switch. So you just pop that to the R when you're done with the roll. It releases tension inside of the body and allows you to pull the film back into the canister once you finish the roll. Here we have our self timer, so you pull it this way and it'll activate a self timer. So it'll take a couple of seconds. I believe the max is 10. It'll take a couple seconds and then manually fire the shutter so you can go pose with your family or do whatever you'd like to do. On this side here, you can see we have a mirror up switch. So that locks the mirror up. That's a pretty unique use case. And you can kind of see the mirror, the mirror going up when I push that up and then go back down when I release it. This is useful mostly for long exposures, where the mirror moving up and down might actually cause shake that could ruin your shot. So for long exposures, you might want to compose, focus, meter, do all that, and then lock the mirror up, fire the shutter, let the mirror back down. Pretty specific, but for you advanced users, that's a good tip. On this side of the lens, we have our flash sync port. So some older flashes are going to need a cable that basically runs from the flash up here down to this port, and that'll tell the camera basically when to fire the flash. This little patch here, it's not a feature or anything. This is just a badge that says MD. It means motor drive, and it basically means that this camera, this OM-1, is prepared to use an accessory grip that also winds the film automatically. Some of the oldest ones don't have this, but most OM-1s will have this, so yeah, if you want to use the grip, make sure that your OM-1 says this. Moving on to the bottom of the camera, we have the battery port that we used earlier. This is the motor drive port, so you're going to need to take this off with a coin as well. I can, pop it off really quickly. It's just some gears inside there, and basically the motor drive connects with these gears to allow it to advance the film automatically, which is a really nice feature and speeds things up considerably. Just gotta get that guy back in there. There we go. A little bit further in, this is our tripod socket. So this is how you connect it to a tripod. It's a standard, I believe, 1/4 inch tripod socket. We have the electrical contacts for the motor drive. So that, again, connects with the motor drive and just allows it to communicate between the camera and the drive. And then we have the serial number here. That tells you basically what number of OM-1 you have. So let's go ahead and load the Olympus OM-1. I have a test roll here of old Kodacolor. So what you're going to want to do is flip the camera upside down, take the rewind lever we talked about earlier, pull it. It'll have one little stop here. Pull it again, and you'll see the spring tension in the back. Open the back. So you can go ahead and pop that open, take your roll of film, put it right in here, pop that rewind lever back in, pull the film across, and you'll see that it has these sort of ridges here, and you can see there's even a tooth at the bottom. That tooth should hook into these holes here on the film. You want to put the film inside there. And normally you would close the back at this point, but I'm just going to leave it open just for the sake of demonstration. Pull that advanced lever, and you see it pulls the film across, locks it in there. Shutter can fire, and you can pull the film again. And then you close the back. Wind the film, fire it a few times, and there you go. Your film and your camera is loaded and ready to go. Once the frame counter here reaches 1, then you are totally ready to go. Your film is unexposed, your film is going to be good. So that's how you load an OM-1. And then sort of the reverse when you unload it. So once you've finished the roll, you're going to want to, like we said earlier, release the tension here by flipping this to the R position. And then you're going to want to take the rewind and rotate it. And you'll be able to feel and hear when the film basically comes unconnected from this spool. Yeah, so there it was just there. This will feel a lot lighter, and you should hear a noise as well, sort of click. So now I'll open the back, and there you go. I left the leader out just because I want to reuse this test roll, but normally you'd wind the entire film back into the canister and then bring it to your lab. So that's how you load and then unload an Olympus OM-1. So this is sort of what you'll see when you look through the viewfinder. You see in the center we have our focusing aid. On this model it's a split prism surrounded by microprisms. Some older models will only have the microprisms, but this model has the split prism, so that's sort of a circle with a line through the middle. Basically, as you turn the focus ring, you can see this sort of move in and out. And when the top and the bottom section are lined up, then whatever is in the center is in focus. So that's your goal, basically, is to get your subject in focus using those methods. The only other thing of note in the viewfinder here is the light meter in the bottom left. It's a match needle system, so there's a needle and a plus and a minus. That basically tells you if your photo is overexposed, underexposed, or properly exposed. So the camera's off right now. That's why the needle is at the bottom. I'll pop it on, and you'll see the needle jump up. The goal is basically to change the shutter speed and aperture until that needle is directly in the middle. So you can see I adjust the aperture and it goes to be underexposed. Then I'll click it back till it's properly exposed. So now if I were to take a picture using these settings, the picture would come out properly. So that's about it for the basics of the Olympus OM-1. With proper service, these can be some excellent everyday cameras. They're lovely mechanical pieces, they're very small, and they're quite reliable, again, if given regular service. They get kind of gunky sometimes, so the mechanisms will get a little bit sticky, especially in the apertures of the lenses. So if you're looking to buy an OM-1 that you can really trust, I would definitely head over to our website, Kamerastore.com. We have multiple mechanics that are trained to service these cameras and treat them with the care and love that they deserve. So, yeah, that's been a sort of overview of how to use this Olympus OM-1. I've been Connor from Kamerastore.com, so thank you so much for watching.